If you drive in New York, you're playing a whole different ballgame when it comes to insurance. So if you get into an accident, you really have to understand the no-fault system. It isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely critical. So let's break down exactly what you need to know and what you need to do step by step. First things first, if this has just happened to you or someone you know, just take a deep breath. I know it's an incredibly stressful situation, but getting a handle on the next steps is really the best way to get some control back. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. And here's the most important thing to get your head around. New York's system is all about speed. And that means that from the very second the crash happened, a very serious clock started ticking on a bunch of deadlines. So what is this system really? Well, the best way to think about New York's no-fault insurance is like a financial first aid kit. Seriously, it's designed to quickly patch up your immediate money problems without getting stuck in a long, drawn-out fight over who's to blame for the accident. See, the whole idea here is that your own insurance company is the first one to step up. They use a part of your policy called Personal Injury Protection, or just PIP, to pay your first round of bills. This gets cash flowing for your medical care and covers some lost pay right away, so you don't have to wait months or even years for a court to figure out who is at fault. So who gets this coverage? Well, it's pretty broad. It covers almost everyone involved in a typical accident with a car. We're talking drivers, passengers, and even pedestrians or cyclists who were hit by the car. But, and this is a big but, there's one major exception you have to know about: motorcyclists. They play by a completely different set of rules. Okay, let's get to what is, without a doubt, the most urgent part of this whole thing. If you only remember one thing from this explainer, please let it be this: the no-fault system runs on deadlines that are strict and totally unforgiving. This timeline right here is your roadmap, and you can't take any detours. The second the accident happens, a 30-day countdown begins for you to notify the insurance company in writing. Then there's another clock for your doctors. They have 45 days from the day they treat you to get their bills submitted. These aren't just suggestions. They are hard and fast rules. 30 days. That's your window to get that written notice of your claim filed. It is the first and honestly the most important hurdle you have to clear. And then 45 days, this one is on your medical providers, but it's really on you to tell them right away that this is a no-fault case so that their billing department can get the paperwork in on time. And let's be crystal clear about the stakes here. This isn't me being dramatic. An insurance company can and very often will deny payments just because a deadline was missed. Trying to argue later that you had a reasonable justification for being late, that's a massive uphill battle you just don't want to fight. Okay, so let's say you do everything right and meet those deadlines. What are you actually getting? Well, New York law requires a basic no-fault policy to have at least $50,000 in coverage, but you have to understand how that money works. I want you to picture it as one single pot of money. It's not $50,000 times for your medical bills and then another chunk for lost wages. Nope. Every single covered expense, your hospital bills, your lost pay, even the cab fare to physical therapy, it all comes out of this one single $50,000 fund. And once it's empty, that's it. It's gone. Let's dig into the nitty-gritty. No fault pays for your necessary medical care, for sure. But for lost wages, it only covers 80% of what you lost, and even that is capped at $2,000 a month. It also gives you a pretty small allowance, just $25 a day, for other necessary expenses like transportation. Now, here's what it absolutely does not cover: any damage to your car, and, this is the big one, it pays zero for your pain and suffering. All right, so that's the what. Now, let's talk about the how. How do you actually file a claim? And what are the common traps people fall into? Let's walk through the practical side of this. The process itself is actually pretty straightforward, as long as you follow the playbook. First, you got to figure out who to file with. Usually it's your own insurer, or if you were a passenger, it's the insurance for the car you were in. Second, you have to submit the official application form, which is called an NF2. That's the best way to make sure you've met that 30-day notice rule. Then you got to stay on top of your doctors. And finally, you have to respond to every single piece of mail the insurance company sends you. These mistakes might seem obvious, but they can completely sink your claim. Probably the biggest one is just assuming someone else took care of it, like the hospital or the police. They didn't. That job is on you. Another classic mistake is blowing off a letter scheduling you for an independent medical exam, or IME. That's where the insurer's doctor examines you, and if you skip it, you can bet your benefits are getting cut off.
So we've already said no fault doesn't pay for pain and suffering, which leads to the obvious question. How do you get compensated for that? Well, this is where the system's big trade-off comes in. To step outside the no-fault system and actually sue somebody, you have to cross a very specific legal line.
And that line is called the serious injury threshold. This is the whole point of the system. The state decided to guarantee fast payments for basic bills, and in exchange, they limited who could sue. So, unless your injury is considered serious under the law's very specific definition, you can't sue the at-fault driver for your pain and suffering. It's as simple as that.
So what does serious actually look like? Well, some examples are pretty obvious, like a broken bone, that's a fracture. It could also be a major scar or an injury that needed an operation to fix. Or, of course, the permanent loss of use of a limb or organ. But there's also a really important time-based one. If your injury stops you from doing most of your normal day-to-day things for at least 90 out of the first 180 days after the crash, that can also count.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. So let's boil it all down to the 3 things you absolutely have to remember. Number 1, act fast. That 30-day notice deadline is everything. Number 2, remember, this is a first aid kit, not a cure-all. It's a limited $50,000 pot just for your immediate economic needs. And number 3, pain and suffering is a whole different fight, and it requires getting over that serious injury hurdle.
All of this really leaves us with one big, fundamental question about the whole system, right? It was designed to be fast, to get money into the hands of injured people without a long wait. But by putting a cap on the benefits and making it harder to sue, well, you just have to ask, does that focus on speed ultimately come at the expense of fairness?